First of all, what is it that made you realize you had to be near water, and why?
You know, Jay, I will say this much. When I started my graduate work in New York City, I'm at Teachers College Columbia, which is right at 120th, and I'm like 2 or 3 blocks from the Hudson River. You walk past Riverside Church, the seminaries, and I saw the expansiveness of the water, and I went, oh my God. So I don't know what is that inside of me. And I'll admit, growing up, I'm a little squeamish when it comes to like swimming. If I actually will concentrate, I'll save myself. But again, we weren't around waterways where you could have free access to this. Or even think of it. My mother used to buy encyclopedias for the house when we were little. And I would always be fascinated with the boats. But I don't know where this is. I did know that my ancestry DNA is connected with boat builders from the Maryland area. So, and sea shanty people. So that could be some of it too.
The second question is, what did you enjoy about building the boat?
You know what, the idea that you took a piece of wood and so the motivation with the boat building is like music, is like visual arts. Music, it's a sound. It's a combination, a collection. Boat, it's wood. And you're trying to figure out how to defy the natural occurrence of it, to make it bend, to shade it, to shape it. To me, and then when I was in my basement and this thing was coming together, sometimes I would work here all day. I'd go work in my basement, it'd be 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'd be trying to do a little YouTube. I'm exhausted, but I'm working on this, just hoping I didn't pull the wrong thing and that boat didn't knock me upside the head and I would have been just lost and dead in that basement. But yes, Viola.
I would hazard to guess that it has to do with your artistic nature. It's a form of sculpture or architecture.
It is.
And three-dimensional.
You are so right. So not only did I do 2 semesters of studio drawing here on campus, I've done a semester of design, but I also did numerous semesters of ceramics. I did find out that the clay would dry out my hands so bad, it probably still dry from where I used to do clay. But you're right, it was the 3-dimensional thing. And I will also add to the fact that for me, working on a dissertation, I couldn't do it tomorrow. You got to do, that taught me, and also preparing music. When you're trying to learn a new piece, you can't necessarily make it perfect in 1 hour. You have to break it down into small increments. And I felt like I was applying all of that to the boat building as well. Yes?
Another comment
Sure.
About water.
Yes.
I feel drawn to water.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the river, the lake, it changes with the light. And it's moving.
It's never the
fluid.
same.
It reflects what's around it.
Yes.
And it's fascinating. And it makes music of a kind.
It is in a way, and it's interesting.
Laughing against society.
Oh my gosh, and I will say this much, even when I go on the river, just my little, I call it, I'm the African queen on the river, just going up and down. You never go the exact same way, ever. I mean, you're going from point A to point B, but it's never gonna be a direct passage. And then, you talk about that, Viola, you could have a dry spell so that the shore is more revealed, or you've had water and it's less revealed. I have to be careful on the river in the early spring because with the runoff, sometimes there's wood things floating up just underneath the surface.
Yeah.
And I've hit something with my propeller that, and I bent it. And I was with a friend and she looked back there and she says, well, I don't see anything bleeding. I don't think we hit anybody. You know what I mean? But yes, the river, the leaves being on the trees, the leaves not being on the trees, the current, the wind flow across. The first time I was in that boat and was trying to bring it into dock, I thought I could do it like a car, go up and then to make a left turn. The river was, yes, I did, And I was on the main voice. I had my goddaughter, I had my friends. We had a bunch of people on the boat. And my friend Rochelle, God rest her soul, was on the deck watching us just go back and forth. Because the current was going down. And then finally somebody says, look, you got to go up, get with the current, and let it kind of slide you in.
That's what the ferry does.
Yes. That's another thing, is to take the ferry ride from Glastonbury to Rocky Hill. It's only a couple of dollars, and you can actually take it. You just can go over and come right back. You don't even have to cross the state.
And you don't have to take your car.
You don't have to take your car. No, you don't.
Do you still use the dinghy? Do you still?
You know what, I must admit, Jay, after I built the dinghy, I immediately got onto this is Mende Liberté, my bigger boat, because I was on a mission to show those dudes that I could do this again. That's right, I was, you know. And I will say this much, so I won 2 awards with this. I was shocked. In 2023, I kept bringing this, and as during COVID, the curved roof of it, I just added that because I had just put some roof on it to keep the sun out. During COVID, I ripped everything out. I ripped off the roof. I ripped the pedestals where the chairs were. I bought Coast Guard approved chairs. I did the roof the proper way. I redid some of you'll look up close in that picture and there's like this script along the side there. It is actually, so with that boat, Mende Liberté, I wanted to add to the story about Amistad. So Sing-Bay Pai was one of the persons who led the revolt. So the imagery on this boat pays homage to the Mendes of Sierra Leone with the language. The language across the side of the cabin is called Kikaku. It was developed in the early 1920s because Kasime Kamara, I think I have his name right, you know, the English had come in with their Latin alphabet. So the Mendes had a spoken language, but they didn't have a written language. And he wanted to come up with a written alphabet and a language. So that was the first language, and then later it was translated over to the Latin alphabet. The sliding hatch, which is on the top of the cabin, has a cosmogram on it. At the Schoenberg Center for Black Studies in Harlem, there's a lobby with an African cosmogram of Langston Hughes. And you all, a cosmogram is actually an image depicting people's journeys and travels. So in a way, the cosmogram was the language they were saying. And I wanted to put that on. So I have some flyers. If you go on YouTube, you can see an image of the sliding hatch. You will also notice there's something that looks like a pattern, a woven. The Mendes had they had a kente cloth, just like West African artists did. But because of the Islamic influence there, the kente design was more Islamic than not. And what I also learned from that experience is when they would weave that, they would intentionally leave something off kilter, because they believe only things from God are perfect. So they would intentionally put one little kink in it.
There's a same theme through Jewish tradition too somewhere. They
Yes.
deliberately put a flaw in something.
Just a little flaw.
Yeah.
Like the Persian custom.
Yes, so we're all coming from that tradition there. Yes, we are. But the interesting thing, you all, so Quentin knew that I was interested in this. He had gone to Sierra Leone, met with the people. The wood that I showed you, they had, when they first went over to Sierra Leone to get the wood for the boat, someone stole 138,000 board feet of wood that they had on the pier. And he said, Deborah, the people had to go back in the woods and get more, and some died to get us this wood. And I went, are you kidding? So not only am I learning about our Amistad, and I'm learning, he's just freely giving me this information. So I just think about that. But again, as I mentioned to some of you before, if you put the wood in a vessel, it puts the spirit of the Iruku in that vessel as well. So yeah. Yes.
What do you use to power that?
I have a 50 horsepower, 4-stroke Tohatsu engine. Tohatsu, you know, people, the Yamaha motorboats. Well, I ran into a guy who runs a marina down in Stonington. And he was really nice, because you all, I walked into the Connecticut Boat Show, and again, what much diversity. And I was just appreciative of the fact that he saw me come through the door, and he says, hi, you want to buy a boat motor? You know, not even questioning whether I owned a boat motor or not. And I kept that in the back of my mind, because when I needed a motor, I found him in Stonington. My first motor was a Johnson, 50 horsepower, but you all, it's what they call a 2-stroke. You mix the oil and the gasoline. When you're running it, it's full of fumes. I mean, usually at the end of the trip, I'd be nauseous just from the smell. But the Tohatsus are on the Yamaha line. They used to sell motorcycles, and now they're known for their mid-size marine engines. So that 50 horsepower Tohatsu, I just put gasoline in it like a regular car. I don't have to do any oil mixtures, and it's a clean production. And so when we talk about a boat planing, it has to plane in order to really efficiently go through the water. Even with 4 or 5 people with that 50 horsepower, it planes up and it goes. And I have license to not only operate a boat, but I can also tow somebody with it. But I'm gonna get my captain's license. That's my next thing. Yes, Jay?
How the heck did you put the engine in that boat? Because that's not like putting an engine in a car.
No, what I did was I actually had to take the actual boat vessel itself to the marina down in Stonington, and they installed it. Yes,
It's like an inboard and outboard,
it's outboard.
all outboard.
It's all outboard. And I bought the Johnson from Pete, what was his name? I forgot his name at the marina. I bought my first used motor for him, and I told him, I said, so-and-so, I'd like to upgrade and get, the 4-stroke. He was trying to sell me the Tohatsu initially, but you all, a boat motor, we're starting at $8,000-9,000. My motorcycle didn't cost as much as that. And so I was able to trade in the old one and add to it, and I got the new engine. So, and it's quiet, you're not screaming to hear people talk on the river. So it's like the African Queen, you kind of chugging down the river. It's a nice experience.
How many miles can you go on?
It's interesting because it's interesting you say that the Johnson, it would go through 2 or 3 gallons of gasoline like that. This, I have about a 5-gallon gas tank. When I take it out on an hour and a half a jaunt, I might have used half of that gas. And I always keep, back up there, because you don't want to have to buy gasoline at a marina on the water. It's the market price is ridiculous.
Can you take that out onto the ocean if you want to, or
You
no?
can. One of the reasons, so this particular boat, again, I went to the boat show and I looked at all of the different, designs. This boat was, it's a skiff developed by Ren Tolman. He lived in Seattle. He later moved to Alaska, and he was trying to design boats for the average fisherman, where you didn't need a lot of fancy wood or anything like that. And that's when he came up with the Tolman skiff. So you could make this boat open without a cabin. They come in, what is it? This is, 18, 20, and jumbo 24. So just to let you know, thanks to Debbie, I also printed out some flyers where you can go online and see the YouTube video of me making this boat. And if you put in Chesapeake Light Craft, there's a video of me making that boat too. But this is the boat I used to build this boat. This is the book. Amazon, $40. Because sometimes boat plans are expensive. For me to buy the actual plans, and what I mean is, the plans are locked out to the full size. They can be $200-300 just for the plans. So I use my math. They gave me like little diagrams how to loft it up to a full size. So I was lofting in this case. I got the most expensive thing. In the bottom of the boat, there are 2 kind of like, I call them like the backbones of the bottom of the boat. Stringers or whatever they call it. They were 16 inches, 16 feet, 6 inches, about 2 inches thick. The 2 of those pieces of wood cost me $300 and some odd dollars. But the reason why being is that when you think about using wood and stuff, you have to think about the grain of the wood. Like if you look at this, the grain is curved. This is not good to be curved, because over time, it'll actually go in the direction of what that is. So I had to make sure that the wood I bought was engineered to be exactly cut the right way, so that the actual rings were actually perpendicular. And so that was it. And then the rest of the boat I used Douglas fir marine grade.
So
Yes.
that one didn't come in a kit?
No.
Like this one?
No, that was a kit. You can get kits for this now. There's one guy who specializes in this brand. He's on YouTube. But at the time, if I could have gotten a kid, it was all the way in Seattle. So I found, and then also too, when I was considering this boat, the summer before I built it, a guy came to the boat show with a big jumbo version of this. Also too, I wanted it to be trailable. I wanted it, so right now you all, I have a carport in my yard. The boat's under the carport. I found that picture there again, you know. The carport, one side is over 12 feet high and 11, and I can get the boat inside.
How much does this weigh?
This weighs, without the cabin and everything, is just under 1,000 pounds. And if you look at the YouTube video of me constructing it, at one point, again, another vessel I had to build upside down I had to make a frame. So the frame that I started constructing on became the gunnel, or that edging on the boat. And then the men at the parlor frame place, there are a lot of small businesses there. Friday after Thanksgiving, they got together and they flipped it over onto and I had to make sure that the boat was secured properly. So it's on the frame upside down. I had to ratchet 2x4s and everything so they could hold it, and they flipped it over onto old tire, you know, and then they lifted it and put it on the frame. But at that time, it was about 900 pounds. When you add this stuff, it's probably getting into the 1,200–1,500 range, not to mention the engine on the back. And that was another thing. Some of those guys at the studio, they were saying, Debbie, you could put a 150 horsepower engine. I said, no. My boat would go boom, boom. So the other thing which I learned about this book is it showed me the proper engine to use for the size of the boat. Wooden boats are not heavy as fiberglass. They're a whole different beast. And then again, I was mentioning, Debbie, to your husband, he asked about, because the bow is so high, if I hit a wake coming in the water, I just angle a little bit, it goes over and it'll sit right back. It doesn't keep rocking. So you asked about the ocean. It is ocean, especially the larger ones, but the person who designed it, he says, if you're in the ocean and it's choppy, just don't go fast. You know, that was the long and short of it. So you can see my cabin is open. They make like it almost like a tugboat, wheelhouse. You can enclose it in as well, you know. So yeah, any other questions? Yes.
How long did it take you to build that?
It took me about 1.5 years of that. And I'm gonna explain this. I shared the place I was renting it with a friend of mine. She was a woodworker too. Bless her. Sometimes our well-meaning goals she didn't follow through so much. So I think at one point, it was February, I had got featured in the JI. The Journal Inquirer did an article on me on this. And she comes to me, she says, Deborah, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm not building anything. I'm out of this studio. So my rent went from $600 a month to, my rent, what I was paying was from $300 to $600 a month. It's amazing when that price tag changes, the motivation for getting stuff done. So I had to get the boat, I had to get it together enough to get it comfortably out of that garage so I could cover it up and do all of the stuff I needed for it to be a warm space. June 1st, I was bringing that boat out of that garage. So I would come here and teach all day, run home, change clothes, and work there till maybe 9 or so o'clock at night. And I had a list. What was I gonna accomplish each day to get it done? And at one point, my friend came to me and she says, girl, did you ever finish that boat? And I said, what was I gonna do? Put in a barn fire? I had invested so much money and time and energy into the boat. You know, I would say, you know, growing up in North Carolina, we had a couple of neighbors who had like the motor boat, and I had a chance to go on it once. And I remember that experience too. The cruises, they lived 4 or 5 doors from us. They had a place on a lake in North Carolina. So Deborah Cruz, who's my neighbor, I showed the boat and I said, Deborah, I want you to know, being on your father's boat was also an inspiration for wanting a boat, you know. So that's my little story, you all. Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you to the library for letting me keep it here and not in my backyard over a top.
Absolutely thrilled to
you
have
know.
it. And everyone, please join us for some refreshments in the back with some cookies and fruit and water. And thank you all for coming. And thank you to Dr. Simmons for these presentations.
You gonna build a boat?
I'm gonna build one.
Did you go to the Chesapeake Light Craft? Because you can get all kinds of